Okay, so I got this instrument cluster for this Land Rover back today from a place in Toronto called Dashboard Instrument Cluster in Toronto, in Oakdale. And put it in, and everything seems to be working fine. Because it's the original cluster repaired, there's no programming required, so we're going to take it for a road test and see if everything's working okay. Just came back from a road test. The cluster seems to work properly. A couple anomalies though. I noticed the fuel gauge reads empty now, whereas if I look in my last video, when the gauge was working properly, it's about 3/4 of a tank. And I noticed the low fuel indicator is not on. The other thing I noticed is the rear wiper is in an on mode, so I think there might be some network issues, so I'm going to have to do a network scan and maybe a network code clear, because there could be some CAN bus issues here. So I'm going to do a network scan on this thing again and see if there's any codes related to this this actual fuel gauge. Lost communication with steering angle sensor, lost communication with instrument cluster module, lost communication with instrument cluster module, steering angle sensor. So likely, hopefully clearing out these network fault codes, because I had the instrument cluster out and I had to move the vehicle. Drive your safety belt buckle pre-tension to deployment control, lost communication with restraint system malfunction, instrument cluster, lost invalid data received from field dead damage control module, a whole bunch of ugly codes. So anyways, we're gonna hopefully restore communication by making sure we got through all these modules, 17 analyzed. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a network code clear, but I believe you got to do this with the key on engine off. So I'm going to stop this. So I've got the key on engine off. I'm doing a network code clear. We'll see how many controllers it sees and erases codes from. Hopefully that's going to restore proper network communication. Well, that looks good. Well, we'll cycle the key and see if the communication to the instrument cluster is returned and the fuel gauge is working. Cycle the key off and back on. Still no fuel gauge. And I saw the rear wiper make one sweep. I'm sure that switch is off in that position there. Because if I move it up to this position, the rear wiper wipes. And that's continuous. And that should be off. Well, we'll do another scan and see what comes up. So let's go into the instrument cluster itself and see if we have any codes. See, it didn't erase those codes. It did that last time too. It says must be key on, must be on and engine off. Well, I did that. Let's try clearing it this way. See, now it cleared with it running. Input status. Where's the fuel level? Ignition, low coolant, low oil pressure, trip, wash fluid, not there. Delivery mode, miscellaneous information. Fuel sender is at 2 volts. Well, that sounds reasonable. Let's see if the instrument cluster is working now. Still no fuel gauge, and I notice the rear wiper wipes again, and I'm sure I've got it off. So it looks like there's a bidirectional test in the instrument cluster for the fuel gauge pointer position. The fuel gauge is reading empty right now. So I'm going to try this test to see if I can command it to a different position. These tests are run with the key on, engine off. Okay. Key on, engine off. Continue. Fuel gauge pointer position. Continue. Cursor up and down. Cursor up and down. Where's my cursor? Oh, let's see if I can do it this way with bringing up the keyboard. So obviously I don't have a cursor up and down. Let's try this up. Up. Oh, I gotta hit continue first. Input value. Let's go 50%. Edit. Oh, alright. Let's go 50%. And enter. And the fuel gauge doesn't move. Now I don't know if that works. Let's go 100%. No change on the fuel gauge. And enter. Or maybe I have to say OK. OK. Test complete. I thought I saw it move there a second ago. It's trying to move. Let's try this one more time. Scrolling through the list. Fuel gauge pointer position. Continue. Continue. Edit. 100. Okay. Okay. It actually went down. I wonder if that stepper motor is defective in the fuel gauge or if the needle's been put on in the wrong position. Let's turn the key off. See, the needle goes down below empty. Well, that's not good. In my previous video, I noted that when the gauge was working, it was at 3/4, and based on the inputs, I think it should be. So I think there's something wrong with this instrument cluster, unfortunately. I'm going to try the speedo pointer position to see if the test actually works. Edit. 100%. Speedo's at 0 right now. Okay. Okay. Definitely works. Okay. Let's try the temperature warning one. Engine temperature gauge pointer. Continue. 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 Edit. 100%. Okay. Okay. Definitely works. So let's try one more time on that fuel gauge. Fuel gauge pointer position. Continue. 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 Edit. 100%. Okay. And now it should work. So it makes an attempt to go backwards for some reason. Oh boy. Well, I guess there's an issue with the fuel gauge in here. Well, I got this instrument cluster back today from repair facility in Toronto. Reinstalled it back in the vehicle. I'm going to do a network code scan to clear network fault codes because I had the key on with the cluster out, and that creates a whole bunch of problems. I did have a problem with the cluster the first time I got it back. The fuel gauge didn't work, but I sent it back to them and they looked after that repair, so seems to be functional now. We'll finish putting the dash together and take it for a road test.